And back to, sorry, I'm kind of all over this place here. We're going down a lot of rabbit holes. But
That's
when
fine.
it comes to back to the 0 point energy and why the government will want to suppress it. I mean, we've talked about, and they're also in your documentaries as well. That I mean, you're taking. I mean, let's talk about how ExxonMobil, plays into this.
Well, all of the big financial, BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan Chase, the big oil, petrodollar, all that, they understand that they want to keep the status quo or tinker around the edges with what I call the pseudo-environmental initiatives, like a Tesla car that you plug in. Well, you have, hundreds of pounds of lithium-ion batteries that are toxic in how they're made and disposed of, charging off a gas and coal-fired grid. People don't think, they think it's free energy. No, you're plugging it into a grid that's smokestacks and maybe nuclear if you're lucky. Very little of it is wind and solar. 12%, something. So the problem is it has such a huge impact macroeconomically. But I would correct one thing. It's not the U.S. government doing anything. Like the U.S. government, I would say virtually no one in the Congress and the Pentagon or White House know about those technologies. So they're not suppressing them. But are there people under cover of the authority of government doing it? Yes. And that is the criminal aspect in the government. That is the rogue element in the government, whether it's the Patent Office or the Department of Justice or anyone. So they're deliberately, I would say the majority of the U.S. government, where you're left, right, center, would like to see a solution to the energy and environmental and poverty problems around the world. But of course, there are a lot of pigs feeding at the trough of the lobbyist money from the impacted industries, because we're talking hundreds of trillions of dollars in assets that are tied up in oil, gas, coal, nuclear, public utilities. I mean, you'd look at the Fortune 500 list of companies globally, not to mention nation states, But, I always point out we've had a 150-year run of that old smokestack technology. These others should have begun to come out 100 years ago and transitioned over. Now we're hitting up a red line, not only geophysically, but geopolitically, where you have half the world in poverty. And let's face it, if everyone in the world where you've been and I've been lived like you and I do, the price of a gallon of gasoline would be $150 a gallon. If they were using the kind of energy that you and I use, and it was all 8 billion souls on Earth. So the only way to solve the human future issue and geopolitical problems is to allow these technologies to begin to be phased in that at least, create energy, even if we hold back the things that fly. I think these electrogravitics need to be held back.
I mean, what I'm trying to do is bring to the light how many corporations would be pissed off if we did hit 0 point energy. The gas industry, the power industry.
Oh, sure.
The car industry.
It's huge.
Everything, everyone.
Well, the car energy would just have to pivot to the type of motor and an electric motor with a 0 point generator and a little teeny 3-volt battery will start it up. You don't need these lithium-ion ginormous battery banks. Those can be retrofitted. But yes, your public utilities eventually will retire because every home business will have its own energy source. Your big fossil fuel, oil, gas, coal, nuclear power plants, they will all be mothballed. Now, the only thing you'd really need oil for is chemicals, petrochemicals, plastics, things like that. So that is something, though, it's not going to happen instantaneously. As I said earlier, this is like a global Marshall Plan to rebuild the planet and regain this 100 years of lost social evolution for our civilization. But we've squandered 100 years. And I don't think we have 100 years left to fix it. I don't think we have 20. So I think that well within your lifetime, and probably mine if I live old enough, certainly my grandchildren, we're going to need to have this established and done, or we're going to be in a true existential crisis. So you have multiple crises coming in at once. You know, the secrecy around UFOs, which is part and parcel keeping secret these technologies, right? And who is that benefiting? A handful of elites, super elites. Now, your average guy working at a utility plant or in an oil field, those are going to need to be supported and retrained to these new high-tech industries dealing with making this whole new system. And I think, you know, we need to be very compassionate about the fact that there will be people displaced.
Well, at the same time, though, everything that we know will be a lot more affordable because it will not take the energy that it takes to produce all these things right now. That energy will be free.
That's the biggest component. You think about the energy it goes into digging the raw materials up, manufacturing it, shipping it to a place where it's assembled, shipping it again, and then delivering it to your store or your home, and everything from the delivery vans and jets to the manufacturing process is running on the current energy system. Mm-hmm. So yes, when the energy costs go to zero, after you have a device that's operative, then you're looking at the ability to have extraordinary abundance. And this is the tide that will lift all the boats in the third world and developing world also, by the way. And it's sort of like how they leapfrog from landlines like we used to have, right, to cell, they just bypass the landlines. The rest of the world will be able to go from having nothing in the way of energy generation, 3 billion people have no power energy at all, to having these systems. And suddenly you're going to see so much happen in the world that is going to be a human advancement. And aside from the air and everything becoming pristine and clean, there are going to be such great opportunities for, you know, the dispossessed people of the world, which I think if you don't pay attention to that, this is how you end up in disgruntled segments of the population in the world that later become terrorists or adversaries. So I think looking at this in the largest possible way, you know, it's a win-win for everyone if we take care of the workers that would be displaced. As for the mega giant corporate entities, they just need to pivot to these new technologies and realize that era is over.
Let's talk about some of the ways that they are suppressing these methods of free energy. Black shelving.
Yep, easy. I know guys who have had this happen where they pick it up, you know, they'll get a buyout. Oh, here's $50 million. You know, Lieutenant Colonel Bearden had a man who had one of these devices back years ago, and the guy didn't have a pot to pee in. And he was very, you know, sort of this inventor, bootstrapping it. Thing was real. It was a real free energy device. And next thing you know, is he's driving around in a Lamborghini and wearing Armani suits. Well, you know, he got basically paid, but he said, yeah, I can't talk about that. It was bought. It was put on the black shelf of a corporation. There it sits. So with enough money, you can pretty much buy out. What's your number? In other words, because if you're protecting a $900 trillion asset base, what is $50 million? Nothing, right? So, and I know many people have had this happen. So that black shelving goes on all the time. The other, of course, and then you get into more nefarious activities.
National security orders.
Yep, NSOs. We have one in the film. It shows the patent office slapping a national security on a patent application of an inventor I know, whose lab I have been in.
Patent seizures, financial entanglements,
yep,
legal entanglements, credible threats, scientific fraud. What do you mean by scientific fraud?
Well, this is where they will deliberately take a device and cause it to be altered so it doesn't work, but they trick people to get money out of them. So in other words, I've actually been a victim of a couple of these. Very clever. But it's basically where you try to siphon off the resources. There's a big venture capital guy I know. He was almost taken last year for $150 million by a group that was going to put it into a fraudulent effort. But so by intercepting that man's interest, they would then, of course, sideline him. So not his financial interest were not going to something productive, that it was deliberately being put into a fraudulent sting operation. I've seen a number of these.
Media corporation.
Well, the media, part of the problem is that even if you have one of these devices, is the media going to report on it honestly? Well, it's just like the UFO issue, which is another reason why we need influencers like yourself, but also some of these celebrities that have supported what we're doing. Because my view is that if we had one of these things right here on the table and it worked, and we tested it, reproduced it, had plans for it, the first 30 that we would make would go to some key people in DC and some big-time celebrities that have their house running on it. And you'd have 2 billion people find out about it in a matter of days. Because what you have to do is figure that the corrupt influences in the scientific and media community that have kept the UFO issue secret are going to kick in on this. So you have to develop a strategy to work around that. I liken that we need to be sort of water flowing, and if there's a huge boulder in front of us, we flow around it or find a way around. Because there are going to be these obstacles, and there have been, and that's one of the big problems. If the media had done its job on all these issues, notwithstanding their lip service to the environment and climate change, if they had done their investigatory job as the fourth estate and a free press, I wouldn't have had to leave my medical career. So the biggest liability here is with the media.
Wet works.
Well, that's just a term used at the agency for assassinations and targeted killings. It's just a slang, but wet comes from blood, obviously. But yeah, a number of people, one in particular I worked with very closely, was killed. And I think others have been over the years, because they didn't do anything rational. Here's how I'll be honest with you. If you have this kind of information, you're sort of holding a hand grenade in your hand that the pin's been pulled. If it's a legitimate system, because there are all these corrupt interests that'll do everything in their power to keep it from going from your lab out to the public. So I think this is where you have to then have a strategic plan to disclose it open source and then get it out through alternative media and influencers and celebrities. I mean, everyone from Leo DiCaprio to Ariana Grande would be thrilled to have a device like this to save the environment, right? So you use the strengths we have. The strengths we have is that 99% of the population would benefit from this. Most of the people who are highly influential, artists and celebrities, would love to see it. And even the corrupt politicians, once the public demand it, they'll have to do it. They'll have to say, yeah, thank you for your donation, ExxonMobil, but we're still going to have to support this. So a lot of this comes down to the public we the people, stepping in on this. I think it's a huge mistake to think that the government of the United States or a big corporation is going to do this.
Yeah.
The history shows they will not.
Yeah, that's for damn sure. We're running out of time here. I know you got a flight to catch, but there's a couple of things that I wanted to ask you, one of them being M.A.G.I.C, the organization that runs covert projects. Can you expound upon that a little bit?
Well, the majority Joint Intelligence Committee. It's a name that's been used back in the old days. There was allegedly a group called Majestic 12. That was a group in the Truman era and early Eisenhower era. But it's basically a committee. It's transnational. It's people from different countries that are on the upper end policy group of this whole problem. And there are a number of people who've been involved over the years. Certainly Admiral Bobby Ray Inman, former Vice President Dick Cheney, George H.W. Bush, a number of people, and I've met with some of the others. And they pretty much determine policy on these sort of big global issues. And part of their portfolio would be the UFO issue. Part of it would be all this new energy issue because they're hand in glove, the same thing.
Yeah.
And then there are other problematic agendas.
How many people do you think are involved in this
I think at the upper level, my understanding is about 200 or 300 folks.
globally?
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's totally global. I tell people it's not international the way we think of the State Department, and it's transnational. So they basically maneuver, and also in other countries. This organization moves with alacrity across all boundaries with these sort of assets, these sort of man-made UFOs, and can do all kinds of operations with they don't need the permission of the host legal government. So this has become a global power. When Senator Inouye said there exists a secret government with its own Air Force, its own Navy, its own funding mechanism that's above the law and free from the law itself, right? He was chairman of the committees back then. And then he confirmed to my attorney, when my attorney, Derek Garcia, was a young intern up on Capitol Hill, that in fact he had seen the 2001 Disclosure Project event, said, yep, Senator Inouye said, all that's true, and there is a secret government running all this. So I tell people, don't take my word for it. Listen to this high-ranking senator. There have been a number of people who tried to blow the whistle on this and point people in the right way, and no one followed up on it. And I think we're reaching a point now where I think we're out of time to let this stretch on for another even 2 or 3 years. My understanding is that if within 6 to 12 months, the results of this new bill is not forthcoming. In other words, if these corporations and individuals don't capitulate and provide what they have to the legal U.S. government, then force will be necessary.
Which brings us to the strike team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the strike team?
I'll just say carefully that people who are utterly fed up in the legal government, who have the means to do something beyond a hearing, that are, special operators and what have, absolutely a clock has been set.
Let's talk about...
And the reason for that is they now realize that the organizations doing this are treasonous, and they are subverting the interests and the national security of the United States. And the rogue elements, the worst, are doing all kinds of crimes under cover of Pentagon or under cover of agency, under cover of the government. Excuse me. This is a complete abuse of power. So
is this strike team from the U.S. government?
I don't want to comment beyond that. It would be it'd be an authorized operation against these illegally run rogue elements. Okay, and obviously with full rights to do so. So obviously, and the real question becomes, those guys, anyone involved with that, would need to have enough detailed information about what the adversary has, right? You're going to walk into an ambush otherwise. So one of the things we have to do is get as much good, detailed information on methods, assets, where they're located, where the bases are, where the entries are, what technologies that can be deployed as a countermeasure. But we're all hoping this never has to happen, because if the American people listening would actually take action, and the members of Congress and the White House would begin to take this very seriously, all of that could be avoided. And so my hope is that there's a smooth, non-kinetic solution. Let's just put it that way.
Completely unrelated to that.
Yeah.
The Hopi prophecy.
Yeah, the Hopis. Well, this is interesting because the time we live in, many people feel, many ancient peoples, and even scriptures, related to the time of sort of the ending of one whole era and the opening of another. And I think that's the truth. I think we're at this point of transition between an old world and a new one. Now, some people say it's the end of the world. I said, no, it's the end of the old world and the opening of a new one. So in the Hopi prophecy, the Hopi prophecy rock, there's one line that terminates, and that's our civilization terminating if we don't get this right. There's another one where then it takes off and it goes off into infinity. So it's like humanity, as I see it, is at this critical juncture where we need to choose whether we're going to go forward and keep going for hundreds of thousands of years and go out into space peacefully, all of it, or we're going to blow the whole system and have a terminal situation. So the Hopis had this in their prophecy.
Who are the Hopis?
There's a Native American tribe in the desert Southwest.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. My grandmother was Cherokee, but I'm familiar with some of these different traditions, and I think that my dad was half Cherokee and half Scottish. Interesting mix, but I think this is why you look at it. Many people around the world get this sense that we're at this inflection point, not just politics and this and what have you, but our whole civilization. And I think these extraterrestrial civilizations know that. They know that we could get into a lot of bad trouble and have things happen that will be extinction level events if we're not careful. On the other hand, they know that if we came together and were, for once in our history, did the right thing peacefully, we could transition to a civilization that literally will be interstellar. Maybe not in my lifetime, but in probably your children's.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yep. Oh, yeah. I have no doubt. We certainly have the means to do it, the technological.
Do you have hope? You think we're going to get there?
Oh, I do. I wouldn't be doing this if I were a pessimist. I mean, I think it's going to be a bumpy ride. I mean, a smooth transition would have been before I was born, when the ETs warned Truman and Eisenhower to make the transition. But I think absolutely we can do it. I had a beautiful lucid dream back when I was a young man, and it was way in the future. Maybe I was around the age I am now. And I was out at what looked like White Sands. And I met my wife in a lucid dream. I have this sort of ability to dream in the future and then meet people, like the Aboriginals with dream time and all that. It's also a Cherokee tradition. But so I had this dream, and it was this beautiful, clear day. The whole U.S. military was supporting this peaceful contact event between humans and an extraterrestrial vehicle that was descending. And there was a very ancient ET elder that came out of it. And it was televised globally, and the whole world saw it. And, it was nothing scary about it. It wasn't like some scary thing. It was a very beautiful thing. So when I had that vision and dream, I said, well, that's one possible future. Now there are other possible futures. And this gets into the almost a spiritual question, is the exercise of free will by humans, individually and collectively. Now, I chose to leave my medical career to do this at great difficulty. But everyone can make their own decision here. Are you going to write to your member of Congress if you're someone involved in these covert projects? Are you going to come forward or not? These are all moral decisions, as I see it. Spiritual and moral, ethical. Everyone thinks morality is, the peccadillos of men having affairs. I mean, no. That's what, in the Middle Ages was considered the foibles and silliness of humanity. We're talking real moral choices here. What are you going to do when you find out there's an issue like this, and are you going to step up to the plate to fix it? So it's a moral question, an ethical question for the Congress, the president, all of us, and I think every citizen here and around the world. Because remember, these same projects have assets parallel, not as big, in the United Kingdom, Australia, Brazil, other countries, no question.
I was going to ask that if there were any
Japan.
Foreign, companies that are involved in this.
Oh, many. And this whole committee that deals with it is like a little UN on its own. It's definitely international. I know for a fact.
Man,
It's global.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's global.
And scary, and
Well, they are scary, but they're not that many. So here's the thing, is what I tell people. The vast majority of everyone on Earth, the vast majority of everyone in legitimate governments of the Earth would be on the side of what we're advocating if they know the facts, the evidence. So that's what we have to put in front of them and hope people make the right choice. That's all I can do. I'm nobody. I'm a private civilian, retired from medicine. But I do think that if the message resonates and enough people act, it kind of creates this collective conscious wave of change.
How would you like them to act?
I think that the leaders, the public needs to just get involved with this and write to their leaders and point them to the assets that we've handed off, the Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive, and ask for open hearings. I think the classified hearing process needs to end. We need to go to open hearings. And I know that's what Congressman Burchett and Comer, the chair of the Government Oversight Committee, and I understand the Speaker of the House all think there should be open hearings on this. The risk there is that they all get gaslit, like I was talking about. But this is where the public needs to weigh in and say, don't be fooled by this other disinformation trajectory that's going to be put in front of you. Like last year, the Pentagon released 1,500 pages of material from Dr. Kit Green and others that are involved in these clandestine operations with alien mutilations and abductions and people being burned. And every one of those cases in there, I know for a fact, were done by humans, masquerading as an alien encounter. So the risk of having people at the National Security Council and the Congress being deceived because they have no information is very great. And this is where, as Eisenhower said, only an informed citizenry can avoid our loss of our democracy. He said it. I'm paraphrasing. If you look up that speech, an informed citizenry. So that's why guys like you are, I think, so key to this, is helping to get the information out.
Well, thank you. I am honored to be a part of it. And, Doctor, once again, I just really appreciate your time and coming here
sure.
and educating my audience and myself, because I am new to this whole subject.
Yeah.
And it's I just keep diving deeper.
Hey, it's a band of brothers and sisters trying to do something great for the country and the world. And I remember my mother's ancestors were the first POWs against the British in the American Revolution. And they were this little ragtag. They really were. I mean, George Washington, all of them. And look what they were going up against, the British Empire. But they won.
Yep.
So I always tell people, you have to have, the human spirit is capable of achieving great things when we come together and do it. So that's what we need to do.
Very true. And, well, I'd like to end this. Eisenhower warned us about the military-industrial complex, and I'm going to play his speech at the end of this.
Great.
He warned us about this a long time ago, and here it is.
1961.
A vital element in keeping the peace is our military establishment. Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action, so that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction. Our military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II or Korea. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. We annually spend on military security alone more than the net income of all United States corporations. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
Doctor, best of luck to you, and I can't wait to see you again.
Great. Thank you.
Safe travels.
Thank you.